Well, good evening, my friends. Normally, I would be starting this video by introducing myself as the Cumberland Outdoorsman, because that's a YouTube channel that I've had for several years now. And on that channel, I cover activities such as hunting, fishing, camping, shooting, hiking, anything that pertains to enjoying the outdoors in a sportsmanlike manner. Okay. I also enjoy collecting old firearms, especially old .22s, because it's just always been a fascination for me. But another interest that I've had ever since I was a kid was the study of insects, and I went to college for it and learned a little bit about the biology of insects and how they pertain to other wildlife, and especially to botany, you know, their relationship with plants, host plants, for example, that they depend on, but also the variety, I mean the tremendous variety of insects that you encounter when you're in the outdoors. It's something that a lot of people notice, but they never really take detailed notice. You know, they never really look at things in a detailed manner and try to learn from it. And that's what this channel's about. Ever since I was a kid, I used to collect butterflies, moths, even beetles, you know. And then I would look them up to find out what scientific name was given to them, and also to try to figure out what the host plant of the larva was and where they live, you know, their range, wherever they might be encountered. And it's just a fascinating subject. It was one day when I was a child, I walked into my grandparents' living room, and they had a display of 3 butterflies that were given to them as a gift, and I've still got that display here. And what they were South American species. They were big, bright blue morpho butterflies. For those of you that aren't familiar with them, I will be covering them in this channel. But anyway, I was so impressed by that small collection that my grandfather and I, we sat down and he took that collection off the wall and we flipped it over, and on the back of it there were data labels where each species was found in South America. You know, some were found in Brazil. I think one was found in Venezuela and the other one in Peru or something. And I was just fascinated. I was just absolutely amazed by that. I didn't know anything like that actually existed. And, you know, it's easy to impress the young mind, but I thought I would start a channel, and I would also include my granddaughter, because she's really gotten interested in this subject. And I thought, why not? You know, why not include her too and get her involved, and maybe some friends of hers that are interested, because there's so much to learn, and I've learned a lot through the years and still have a lot to learn, but I would like to share my knowledge with younger folks and also with my viewers out there. Now, what I've got out here is something that I normally set up. We all know that insects are attracted to light, and what I've got up here is a 400-watt mercury vapor lamp, and down below here I've got 20-watt blacklight fluorescent tubes, and then in between my fluorescent lights I've got a white sheet, and that's where they land. They're attracted to that white glow at night, and I've got a variety of different moths. And a while ago, I had some beetles come in here, and I wanted to wait until I got some of my favorite beetles to come in so that I could share them with you. I've got a jar here from collecting in case I see something that I really want for my collection, because I'm also going to be covering how to collect and catalog and label insects properly for scientific use, you know, for research, and also to share it with the scientific community. But let me show you these beetles. Put my jar down here. Here we have a male and female Hercules beetle, eastern Hercules beetle. These are called Dynastes titius. The male is the one that's armed. It has the horns on it, It's actually got 4 horns, 2 small ones on each side, and then one here and one on top. And then the female, she's out front here. These are quite large. You know, you can see from the size of my hand, these are very large beetles, and they're probably the heaviest beetles here in the eastern United States. There's another species that occurs out west in Arizona and New Mexico, I believe. It's the Grant's rhinoceros beetle. The horns are actually longer on the males, although the beetle size is about the same. Now the eastern Hercules beetle is more ornately marked. You can see that olive color to the elytra, which that's the covering, the wing covering on the abdomen there. And it has these beautiful black spots. No two are marked exactly the same. Some of them have more black spots, some less. Some have little tiny black spots, some have large blotches. But just like fingerprints, there are no 2 beetles that are marked exactly the same. There you can see the female. She's marked similarly, but she's a little bit darker. The female does not have the horns. She is not armed like the male. And the reason the male is armed is because the male uses those horns to fight with other males in competition for females. Just like a deer or any other mammal like that, when the rut comes in, you know the male bucks fight in competition for females. That's what these beetles do. They live in tree hollows when they're larval. They're huge larvae. They're big grubs actually. And they go through 3 different stages of larval development, and then they turn into a pupa, which is inside of a cocoon that is formed. And then later on they emerge as these huge beetles. Now if you look at my avatar, you see that I've got an even larger beetle on my hand. That's one from South America, but it's very closely related to the eastern Hercules beetle. There's quite a few different species worldwide. Most of them are in the Americas, North America, Central and South America. And I'll be sharing those with you in upcoming videos. But I just wanted to make an introductory video, and I waited on this evening until I had 2 of these beetles that handily came into my lights here so that I could properly introduce what this channel is all about. And that's the study of insects, particularly beetles, butterflies, moths, cicadas, and occasionally I'll be going over Hymenoptera, which are actually wasps and bees, things like that, you know, because there's a lot of neat wasps that fly here. One in particular that's very interesting is the cicada killer, and that'll be coming out pretty soon, where the female cicada killer actually goes out and hunts cicadas, and they inject them with a paralyzing toxin that doesn't kill the cicada, it just paralyzes it, and then they carry that cicada to a burrow. She lays her eggs or oviposits on that cicada, and then when the larvae emerge, they feed on the live cicada. Kind of a horror story, really. But they're a really big wasp. They're solitary. A lot of people are frightened by them, but I want to educate folks that they're not really a threat to humans. Anyway, let me show you what came into my lights here, and I'll show you my setup here and how I rigged it up in case anyone else might be interested in doing this. Well, folks, here at this setup where I attract night flying insects, which are just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, than day flying insects, I've got a series of lights that I rigged up myself. Let me show you the first one here. What I've got up there is a 400 watt mercury vapor bulb that's powered by this ballast here. It's a 400 watt ballast, that I built out of an old military ammunition box. I'll open it up here and show it to you. That's where I wired it up. And it does real well because if it happens to rain, everything inside will stay dry. It warms up a little bit, so you know, that's something that you need to be aware of if you decide to do this. But I'll be posting another video on how to wire up one of these lights if you decide to use a light that has a ballast. And you'll need this ballast to be able to power that big light. And then right here, I've got a series of fluorescent lights. These are blacklight, regular ultraviolet black lights. These are not LED. LED won't work for this. And down here I've got a daylight, incandescent daylight tube. These are 18-inch, 20 watts. And on the other side of this spread sheet that I made a frame for, this is a portable type aluminum frame that I built. Here I've got another stand of 24-inch tubes. Here is a daylight tube, regular incandescent daylight. And then this is a ultraviolet black light, and then there's a standard blue black light or purple black light. And I wanted to make this arrangement to kind of give you a variety of different wavelengths, and it seems to work quite well. You can see there's a lot of insects attracted to this side over here. Some of the insects that came in are mostly moths, but also other types of insects like this mantis fly. That's not a true praying mantis, it just looks like one. And it has clear wings. There's beetles that come in, different types of bugs. Bugs and beetles are not the same, by the way, folks. And then some very interesting moths, like this honey locust moth. That's the bisected honey locust moth. And then some of these larger wild silk moths. Let's go to the other side here. Once again, let's see, there's a leopard moth. Very interesting species. See those quite regularly. There's another one right there. Here's a Luna moth. Very beautiful species that occurs in the eastern part of North America, the eastern half. And then here we have a tulip tree silk moth. This is a male. Get him to open his wings here. Let's see. There he goes. The larva feeds on poplar or tulip tree, mainly. That's why it was given that name. And the scientific name is Calosamia angulifera. And the Luna moth is Actius luna. And then there's some of these rosy maple moths that have come in, like that one right there. That's a really cool little moth. My wife calls them bubblegum moths because they have the same color as bubblegum. That's a real vivid one there. It's real pretty. The larvae of those feed on maple mostly, different species of maple. That's why they're called rosy maple moths. And a lot of insects, especially moths, are named after the host plant that they live on as larvae. There's another Luna right there. Didn't notice him a while ago. That's a moth that a lot of people are very familiar with because there was a commercial out several years ago that was a sleep aid. It's called Lunesta, and they featured that moth right there in the commercial. Let me back up here and show you what this light looks like from a distance. As you can see, it's got my whole yard here lit up. There's my setup, folks. And that's typical for a lot of collectors and insect enthusiasts that either come out and set up these lights to photograph different types of insects, or to also collect and catalog different insects. But you can see how that big light up there really lights up the whole area. All the trees are lit up here. So any insects that are flying around here are going to be attracted to that light, and then they come into that fluorescent light as well. Well, folks, earlier this year I had this set up out here, and I attracted several giant silk moths, you know, the big, beautiful ones. And I got some females, and I also got some cocoons of the largest moth of North America, the Cecropia moth, and I feature that on my other channel. If you watch that, you probably saw that video. And what I did is I got the ova, the eggs, and let them develop into tiny larvae, and then put them on the host plant and watched them as they grew, you know, as they went through their different stages. And it's really interesting. Just a great subject matter to cover. And that's another thing that I would like to document and cover in these videos of this channel, because there's a lot to learn, folks, and it's really fascinating to watch. I got to say, it's, you know, it's been a very educational experience for me, and I think it will be for a lot of you folks out there if you watch this channel. And right now I've currently got 3 or 4 different species, and I went on a trip to eastern Tennessee to go after the pine devil moth, a Citheronia species that's somewhat uncommon, but I found them in good numbers, and I actually got a couple of females that laid eggs, and I'm currently raising those right now, so that's in an upcoming video as well. Not only me raising those larvae right now, but also the trip that I took over there and going on that mission to try to find that particular moth. It just worked out perfectly. And then here recently we went from the southern Appalachian Mountains. I say that because it was my granddaughter and I. She's also interested in this subject matter. We spent one night in the Appalachians and collected, and then we traveled all the way to the Gulf Coast of Florida and did some collecting down there as well. And that's another upcoming video that I'll be posting. I just have to work on it and get it all edited. And there's a lot of subject matter involved in this activity. And I've got collections, I've got things that I'm rearing, and then setting up these lights, and also going out during the day and encountering different insects, butterflies especially, but also dragonflies. And I've got some video footage of the massive cicada emergence that occurs here from time to time, both 13 and 17-year cicadas. And I've got one of the instructors, entomologists from the local university, that will be joining me in that video. I've still got that put away, so I've got a lot of videos that I need to post, and with any luck I'll get those out there pretty soon. But for right now, let me just show you all the different varieties here on the sheet, and then I'll close out the video. And I think I'm going to go hit the sack for a while. I'll turn off this big light and leave the fluorescent lights go, because everything that's come in at a distance, that's landed out here in the grass and in the trees, will suddenly be drawn into these fluorescent lights, because the big light no longer has all that illuminated. But let me go grab a light and I'll show you all the different varieties of moths. That's really interesting. So many different kinds. I used to know a lot of the scientific names. I have to brush up on that particular subject matter. And a few different beetles here. As you saw, those big rhinoceros beetles came in, or Hercules beetles I should say. And there'll probably be some more coming in here tonight because they're on the wing right now. They're flying. This is a little bit late now for the giant stag beetles that come in, the big ones with the massive horns on front. But with some luck, maybe we'll get some this year, and I'll be able to document those as well. Before we look at these insects that are on the sheet here, let me just make special mention of this little book right here. This is the Roger Torrey's Peterson guide. It's a field guide to moths of North America, okay? Particularly eastern North America. And there's color plates in here, as you can see, and also descriptions, and it's quite thorough. But it covers different subject matters such as collecting and preparing moths. You know, some people strictly collect moths. They don't collect anything else. Because there's so many different varieties of moths here. But, you know, if you get a good publication, you can learn a lot from it. And it's also a good reference guide for all the different species that you see, no matter where you might be living. Just make sure you find a book that covers the species in your area. Let me show you what came in, and then I'll close out the video. I've got a light here now. There you can see there's a noctuid moth that came in. Very interesting. There's one of those rosy maples. There's a type of inchworm moth. You've seen the inchworm caterpillars? Well, that's what a lot of these have. There's a zale moth. And that's a prominent moth. Let's see what else we have here. There's a beat up Luna moth. There's one of those hawk moths that came in. I think that one there's called Myops. That's the species name. There's an interesting underwing. I'm going to catch that one and get him in the jar, and I'll show you why those are called underwings. There's some of those click beetles. Show you why they're called click beetles. See how he's clicking his head back and forth? Anyway, I think you got the point there. There's another large hawk moth. Some of those are familiar to a lot of people because the tomato hornworm that grows on your tomatoes is a larva of some of these moths. Not this one in particular, that's the waved sphinx. There's another inchworm moth. Several different varieties of those. All right. Well, let me get this underwing moth and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here I've got a special jar that you can catch insects with, and it actually stuns them, and if you leave them in there long enough, it will actually kill them because it's got a chemical in it. But we'll catch him real quick. There you can see he's in there fluttering around, but anyway, there's so many different species of underwing moths in this area. I mean, they're just, I think the last time I checked, I've discovered 43 different species here, right here alone. So there's no shortage of them, especially in the eastern forests. You know, that's where they normally hang around, is deciduous forests, but also deciduous mixed with pine forest. And you'll encounter these moths usually in midsummer. Okay, I think we've got this moth pretty well stunned. I'll take him out of the jar here, put the lid back on. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. As you can see, the top of the wings are very cryptic. What I mean by that is they would blend in real well with the tree bark or something similar that they would land on and hide. Okay, so they're very cryptic. And the underwings, or the hind wings, there you can see, are colorful. They have that orange and black striping. Some of them are orange, some are yellow, some are red, some are pink. Some of them are just solid black, but that's why they're called underwing moths. Now, if we wanted to put this in our collection, put him back in the jar here and let him expire, you have a perfect specimen to add to our collection. And what you would do is record the location, the date, your setup, you know, what you use to collect that moth with. If it's a butterfly or something like that, you want to also include information like what you caught that butterfly on, you know, what type of plant. If it was milkweed or bergamot or something like that, you know, whatever you captured that particular specimen on the, whatever type of food that it used, because that's all scientific data, you know, it's all important. And some people actually record the time of day, you know, when they were found, and weather conditions, because it could be useful for documentation of scientific records. And occasionally I'll do that. I'll go into great detail on the data label for each specimen. And then sometimes I'll donate specimens to schools and universities and other places. But I also, here recently, have just taken photographs of different species and posted them on the iNaturalist and given specific locations along with the photograph of where I encountered that particular type of insect. So tonight, I think I'll be posting the eastern Hercules beetle and where I found it. I'll get a good photograph and post it on iNaturalist. So anyway, folks, that's what this channel's kind of about, you know, is the enthusiastic involvement with insects in different activities, because there's so many different activities that you can get involved in. If you don't want to kill anything, you don't have to. You can enjoy these creatures just by observing them at a light like this, or if you go out into a weedy field where there's a lot of flowers, you know, and blooming vegetation, and you can photograph and study different types of butterflies and nectaring beetles and bees, and there's just a whole host of things that you can observe without having to go the extra step of collecting that specimen and then having to mount it and catalog it and label it. Well, I just had a flower beetle land on me there. So anyway, that's what this channel's about, and hopefully it'll interest most of you folks out there. Well folks, that's going to wrap it up for this first video that I'll be posting on the Insectologist, and I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, you know, if you like insects, if you like studying insects, collecting, photographing, rearing, whatever your activity happens to be, I hope you enjoy it all as much as I do. But also remember this: hit that like button, smash the bell icon, and subscribe. That way you'll know when more videos like this one will be coming your way. So until the next video, y'all get out there and enjoy the natural world. And if you encounter any insects, take note. I think you'll find it interesting. I'll see you all next time.